I hope you're enjoying your Friday night. So much is going on here at the Michigan football program. I thought I'd whip out the laptop and talk about some things that we've been hearing, some rumors, some confirmed things, some things that are trending in the right direction. I've got at least a source that is telling me to keep an eye out, but nothing too confirmed. So we're going to talk about, obviously, Kyle Whittingham, offensive and defensive coordinator, rumors, what I think about them, some confirmed things and what's going to happen tomorrow and this weekend, and who's going to stay, who's not from the Sherrone Moore staff, and then some weird stuff going on with Biff Poggi. And I don't know, Michigan's got a game in less than 5 days at this point. What is going to be the outcome of Biff Poggi with this program? But if you like the Kyle Whittingham hire as the new Michigan football head coach, give me a like on today's video, and we'll get the ball rolling. So like today's video if you like Kyle Whittingham being the new Michigan football head coach after 21 years at Utah. So Whittingham will travel, it sounds like is confirmed at this point, but will travel to Orlando on Saturday and stay through at least the weekend. But there's also rumors of maybe a press conference in Ann Arbor on Sunday. So we'll kind of see how it shakes out. But he will go there and meet with some key folks in the Michigan football program. He's going to meet with the coaching staff, but most importantly, he is going to try and keep this roster intact as Michigan players came back from a 2-day Christmas break before the bowl game, traveled to Orlando today. Their new head coach will meet them on Saturday. And who is he going to bring with him it sounds like he's going to bring current Utah offensive coordinator Jason Beck with him down to Orlando to meet with Michigan's top offensive, mostly players, to talk about what their role could be in a new offense in the Kyle Whittingham era at Michigan. So Jason Beck runs, I didn't really know too much about him before 6 hours ago and did a bunch of reading on him over the last 3-4 hours, watched a bunch of videos, looked at Utah's stats, looked at his prior stops, right? A longtime quarterbacks coach, really getting his first shot as offensive coordinator this year with Utah. And frankly, he turned him around. You're going to be surprised when I tell you this, right? Utah, the number 6 total offense in college football this year. The number 6 total offense at 478.6 yards per game. North Texas won, Ole Miss, South Florida, Tennessee, Texas Tech, Utah, well above Ohio State, well above Oregon, and many, many others. But I'll talk about more about Beck here in a moment. But here's what you're going to expect from these meetings. It's going to be a big focus on Bryce Underwood. Michigan is going to offer Underwood a re-up of his NIL deal, a little bit more money if he not only commits to 2026, but also to 2027. Although I'm not sure if they need to do that because I'm not sure what the market for Bryce Underwood for a multi-million dollar multi-year deal is at this point based on what you saw in 2025 from him. Also going to be with Jordan Marshall. I don't think Marshall's somebody who's looking around, but you've got to keep him on this roster. It's absolutely imperative if you're going to have success in 2026. You don't want to be relying on Savion Hyder or a walk-on Brian Cusdahl or someone like that. Talk about more of this in a second, but if you're enjoying the Michigan Football Report this December and all season long, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're at 37,500 subscribers. Hopefully we can get to 38,000 before Michigan's bowl game on Wednesday against the Texas Longhorns down in Orlando. But Andrew Marsh is a key person that Whittingham is going to meet with and Jason Beck's going to meet with. He's going to talk about the Utah offense. He's going to talk about their success with wide receivers. And just glancing at it, it's nothing too special, right? From the wide receiver group. They had one receiver, 659 yards, another one, 514 yards. I'm sorry, that was actually a tight end. Another tight end, second tight end is their third leading wide receiver. So it's receiver, tight end, and then another wide receiver, only 271 yards, running back, wide receiver. So out of their top 5 pass catchers, only 2 are wide receivers when it comes to yards. So not a ton to really hang your head on from hey, we're going to get you the ball more than you did in the Sherrone Moore offense, which frankly, I'm not sure why Marsh would be too upset given how much of a focus of this offense he was down the last 6 or 7 games of the season. I mean, if you look at this offense, though, I really like what you see of it as positionless, which again, I'll talk about more in a second. They're also going to meet, at least Whittingham will. I'm sure Beck will be in those meetings, but won't necessarily talk about the scheme. They're going to meet with the top defensive guys, right? Who are the players? Jair Hill, right? Quite a few others, of course, that will potentially return in 2026 and be the core of a resurgent Michigan defense, right? I'm not sure if it's going to be with Wink Martindale. I frankly doubt it at this point, but Michigan's going to want to keep as many of those guys as humanly possible, right? I'm not sure if it's going to be a bunch of players that return, a bunch of players that transfer. I think it's up to these guys as coaches to do their jobs to convince these players that don't go somewhere else. You spent 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 years in this program with maybe multiple defensive coordinators who have been there for more than 2 years, and you owe it to yourself to see this thing through, to be a Michigan man, for whatever that means anymore, and give this new defensive coordinator a chance. If it doesn't work, I know the transfer portal is really only in January right now, but I know guys can, once a coaching change happens, they have like another 30 days to transfer. So guys can commit, see what happens. They can also transfer a month from now if that's how things shake out, and they'll get a little more of a wiggle room other than just the normal transfer portal window. There'll also be a handful of recruits that are traveling, I guess on their own dime, but Michigan could potentially pay for them through an NIL fund. At least 8, 9, 10, 12 recruits. I've seen a few different lists out there traveling to the game as just, fans. I'm sure they'll be on the sidelines, although they changed the rule because the last couple of years, recruits have been able to practice with the team going to bowl season. That happened in 2023 and 2024. If you remember, guys like Jaden Davis, et cetera, were traveling or practicing with the Michigan team leading into the Rose Bowl in 2023 and the national title game. Bryce Underwood was practicing with the Michigan team, getting ready for the bowl game against Alabama last year. They've done away with that. You're not allowed to do that anymore, apparently, but I think it's just, an NIL champion circle is paying for the plane tickets for them, a family member, whatever. It shouldn't cost more than $1,000 or $2,000 per player that wants to go down. So maybe you have more than the 8, 9, 10 players that I've seen listed traveling down there. But I expect Whittingham, expect Beck to be meeting with those players. I think you got to lock down Underwood first. After that, Marshall and Marsh are the absolute imperative guys that you need to keep as a part of this program. They can play up to 3 more years combined together, right? They're all true freshmen in Underwood and Marsh, and then a technically redshirt freshman in Jordan Marshall, who could come back as deep as the 2028 season and play together. So imperative for Kyle Whittingham to get off on the right foot. So I'll ask you guys this question. Will Bryce Underwood play for Michigan in 2026 next season? Give me a yes or a no in the comments. I'll go yes for now. We'll see how things shake out. I'm sure we're going to learn a lot more, either directly or indirectly, on Saturday into Sunday as Kyle Whittingham gets to meet with the Michigan football team for the first time. Now let's go back to offensive coordinator Jason Beck. The thing that seems most interesting to me about his offense, if he turns out to be the offensive coordinator, which it certainly seems like he will, and if he makes the trip with Whittingham, I'm guessing there's absolutely no question that he's going to be and will be announced shortly after the Whittingham deal and everything goes through. By the way, hearing it's a 5-year deal, but I've heard $5 million, $9 million per year. I'm not sure if that's accurate at this point yet, but that's just the number that's out there. Positionless offense. I think that would have worked great for Samaj Morgan or Donovan Edwards or a handful of other players over the last few years with Michigan. Don't know if it works as well with the current personnel, at least in the way that I've seen them being played, but think Deebo Samuel with the 49ers 3 or 4 years ago, where a guy is out at wide receiver, can catch a few passes, but then transition back, take a snap, take a handoff out of the backfield. So he's at times in his offense plays 2 or 3 different guys who sometimes line up as blockers, sometimes line up as running backs, sometimes line up as wide receivers, and they always want to keep the defense guessing, which frankly, under the last couple of years of Sherrone Moore as Michigan's offensive coordinator, head coach, the offense has not had defensive coordinators doing whatsoever. Other offensive and defensive coordinator candidates that are out there being discussed. I haven't confirmed this one. Don't even know a ton about it. I just want to give you guys the info unless you haven't kept up on this. BYU's defensive coordinator, Jay Hill. Had BYU in the top 10 for much of the year last year. They're still, I think, ranked number 12 in the country. One of Utah's 2 losses this year. Only 2 losses for BYU this year were to number 4 Texas Tech. So clearly a good defense. That defense this year was number 28 in total defense, giving up 328.4 yards per game. Jay Hill worked with Kyle Whittingham as a grad assistant and then a position coach, and then Whittingham got the job. And they were together for 15 plus years, starting like 2001 to 2014-15. He went out and took a job, Hill did, as head coach at Weber State for 5 or 6 years, returned back to an assistant coach in 2023 as the DC at BYU. So he's been there the last 3 seasons. But him and Whittingham coached together for 15 plus years. Really a lot of buzz there that he is going to be the defensive coordinator of the Michigan Wolverines. So, all right, not bad. You got your OC, you got your DC. I don't know if Hill's going to make the trip to Orlando or be part of any introductory press conference, but if he's the guy, sounds like a heck of a good candidate. How you feeling about this hiring staff, this coach, this entire process for Michigan? Let me know down in the comments just your thoughts about Kyle Whittingham, the future of Michigan football, and the Whittingham era that we are now under as the 22nd head coach of the Michigan football program. Offensive line coach Jim Harding, been the O-line coach at Utah for the last 12 years, is another name that's being pushed out there by the national media as someone that is very likely to make the position, the transition over to Michigan and be the offensive line coach there. Now, you got to think about this, though. All these guys were expected to stay on at Utah to be part of the next coaching staff, right? The new Utah head coach had been there as a coach in waiting. Whittingham kind of stepped away because he felt that the administration and maybe even some other coaches felt it was his time, but he said he wasn't retiring. So these guys were expected to stay on as assistants at Utah with the new regime. They're supposed to all coach with Whittingham, which I don't think he will be the coach, as I may have said earlier in the video, on Wednesday against Nebraska in Las Vegas. But will any of these guys spurn Michigan, the ones he wants, and stay with Utah, a commitment they've already made to their new head coach? The number one target that Whittingham is going after from the Michigan coaching staff, and frankly, it might end up being the only target. Not sure about that 100%, but the main one is going to be Tony Alford. Right? There's 2 reasons why. One, because of the Michigan running game, which is nationally known as excellent in the Jim Harbaugh era and even in the Sharon Moore era. But most importantly, potentially, is keeping Savion Hyder on the roster, a potentially generational Big Ten and Michigan running back. And Alford being a part of the next staff is, frankly, vital in Hyder not entering the portal before he even steps foot on Michigan's campus as a player. Now, I'll leave you guys with this. There is a lot of chatter. I'm in a couple of text threads with a few ex-Michigan players and parents and such. And I've seen this on Twitter and elsewhere, that Biff Poggi's appearance a couple days ago, which I actually thought was AI at first because he sounded drunk. He was just blabbering his words. He's saying, well, all this different stuff. But he went through the Michigan program under the bus. And he said that a guy's leaving for Christmas break and 25 of them might not return and all this stuff. And I think it just spoke very poorly. And why the hell is he going on a Texas podcast with Vince Young and some rando and Mac Brown? And it was just so weird that he even made that appearance. Who's advising him on his media availability? But it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, both donors, current Michigan coaches, Michigan players, parents, folks, decision makers in and around the university, that I think there's at least credible conversation that he's going to be sat down in Orlando and had a talking to. And I don't think there's an absolute guarantee that conversation won't blow up into some sort of argument where Biff takes offense and the Michigan people won't back down and tell him that was stupid and he shouldn't do that. I don't think he's going to be part of the staff with Whittingham. I think that was maybe a power play by Biff to hold those 25 players over Michigan's head and say, hey, if you don't give me the job, these guys are going to transfer. They're not going to play in the bowl game. You're going to lose your whole roster. And if that's the case, it looks really poorly on Biff. Just the fact that he spent so much time in this program and he would do that as his final, calling card, his curtain call, I don't like. But if that meeting doesn't go well when they talk about this podcast appearance, I could see there being a potential. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I just wouldn't be shocked if you hear Biff Poggi will not coach in Michigan's bowl game and Tony Alford or Wink Martindale or someone else is going to be Michigan's interim coach against Texas. So just keep your eye out for that. Don't know if it's going to happen, but I do know there will be a conversation with Biff, with some of the decision makers in and around the Michigan football program, the AD, et cetera, about that podcast appearance and what he was trying to accomplish, and frankly, why he did it without communicating it to anybody prior to that show. Last but not least today, just give me your Michigan-Texas predictions. I have no idea who's going to play in this game. I have no idea what it's going to look like, who's even be coaching it for Michigan. So I'm just going to say at this point, Texas 24, Michigan 10. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I'm going to be doing videos probably all weekend. Anything relevant comes out, or we've got sources on, we'll put some stuff out for you both here, Twitter, follow us on Facebook, wherever. So I'll see you guys next time, though. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your Friday evening. Go Blue.